Okay, thank you. So we'll call the meeting to order. A few rules, the same as the last meeting that we had. If you wish to speak, or if you want to move or second a motion, and if we vote on a motion, if you can put your hands up fairly close to your side or whatever, so that I can see that you wish to either move or second, or that you wish to speak. So other than that, we'll see how it goes here tonight, and hopefully it went fairly good the other night, and it'll even go better tonight. So the first item of business then is confirmation of the agenda. And Carla, I'm assuming that there's no additions or deletions to this agenda?
No, there are none.
Okay, so do we have a mover and seconder for the confirmation of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Marshall, seconded by Councillor Tankowski. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. And does anybody have a conflict of interest with the agenda as it was circulated? Okay, seeing none. We have a consent agenda with 7 items on it. Is there anything there that anybody would like some clarification or would like pulled and dealt with separately? If not, a motion would be in order to accept the consent agenda. Councillor Rose, Councillor Bell, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. We do not have a public meeting or a delegation, so the first item up is reports, and it's the Recreation and Facilities Manager. So Darcy, I gotta look and see where you are here. I know he was with us. I think we've lost Darcy. Oh, there he is. Okay, the floor is yours, Darcy.
He's still on mute.
Yeah, you're okay now, I think.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, first up is my activities report. Obviously, we're a little down on activities right now due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but staff is still working. They've assisted some of the volunteer groups that couldn't do the cemeteries, as well as one of the exciting things that we're working with the Perth County municipalities is the virtual Canada Day. So they just had their first meeting Friday, and it's been interesting. And Abby's been communicating with the Rotary Club on what their plans are, and we're hoping that we can kind of work everything together into a virtual Canada Day celebration. Next up will be whether we'll be able to open the pool and some of the summer programming. We're going to have to make a decision on that fairly shortly if we're going to be pushing some dates back as lessons and stuff progress. So, take any questions.
There you go. Yes, Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, Darcy, I just we had been talking to baseball and soccer about out at Cooper Field. I'm just wondering if we're able to get started on any of the activity. I know we had talked before about fixing some of the drainage out there. If the sports do go this summer, they're going to be pretty condensed, I would think. So having that ball diamond, the extra ball diamond, and the field, the drainage for that soccer field would be probably a good thing.
Yeah, we haven't. So what we're looking for is a plan from soccer and baseball. We left that with Richard Boyce and can't think of his name right now, but Doug Wolf, to get a kind of a plan on where they expected that extra diamond to go and that. And I haven't heard back from them yet, but now could be a time that we look into that if there's funds available.
Again, Jeff.
I know they hadn't had a chance to get the maps from the municipality, but Doug had done up a plan by hand type thing, and had shared it with Richard. Now I'm not sure what Richard's comments were on it, but I can talk to Doug and get that into you guys if they're both okay with that. We could get started maybe.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a email chain together between the 4 of us and get working on that.
Great, sounds good. Thanks.
So end result on that, Darcy, is before they do anything, they should bounce it off of you. What's going to happen?
Yeah, and then we would do a report to council before we would make any full decisions, but to have a plan in place first to come to council with.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay. Next item
is The compressor and chiller tender results, everything's in front of you. I listed all the bids that came in. We had all that we expected. The one decision that's in there is the N2M or the N6WA compressor. That was a choice I left in to see kind of what the price difference was, because I really wasn't sure what the bids would come in. I definitely think it's advantageous for us to go with the N2M compressor. It's more energy efficient. As I said, there's a lot of models that are coming out showing at least a $40,000 savings in going to the N2M over the 20 years between maintenance. It's a 2-piston system over a 6-piston system, less overhauls, which overhauls are anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 when you have to do them. So you have to do less of those. Plus, they are more energy efficient and give us options in the future to be more energy efficient in our ice plant. So my recommendation would be to award the tender to Simcoe Refrigeration for the N2M model compressor and the shell and tube chiller in the amount of $75,170.10, excluding HST.
Okay, do we have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Rose and Deputy Mayor Ait. Okay, any discussion on that item? Any questions? Okay, doesn't appear to have any questions. So all those in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? Looks like it's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item then, Darcy.
Next item is the sponsorship. So this is kind of a follow-up to the March 16th council where you adopted the sponsorship and naming of corporate assets. This is some of the sponsorship opportunities we see presently that we could start moving forward. I mean, the Olympia is obviously the obvious one right now. The Olympia is still scheduled right now for a mid-June delivery. And we could definitely sell some advertising on both sides of that before it goes on the ice. So this was kind of to adopt the fees and charges that we have in the flyer and to pass it into to amend the schedule bylaw to amend those prices.
Okay, let's get this one on the floor then first, and we'll see if there's any questions. So mover and seconder, Councillor Marshall, and a seconder, Councillor Murray. Questions? Councillor Tam, you're muted, so don't forget to unmute. Go ahead.
So for the 7,500 a year, I assume that gets the name at the center ice for whoever sponsors the whole rink.
Yeah, I believe. Sorry, I don't have the flyer up right now, but I think it said in the flyer that it would be on the front end at center ice. But okay, I can double check that. But yes, I believe so.
Okay, and one other thing, and maybe Chief Hunter can speak to this too. I've understood through a few members of the fire department that they were thinking of doing some advertising at the arena somewhere, like maybe on part of the ice surfacer or a logo under the ice. So would there be an opportunity to work with them, maybe at something that they would be affordable to them?
Yeah, I would have zero problem with working with the fire department to find something that works for them and us, for sure.
Okay. I'm not sure if Bill can hear me or not, but I understood that they had some interest in doing some advertising there for fire prevention or whatever, if possible in the future.
Yeah, we got some prices on the logos for smoke alarms that would go on the surface, but we didn't include that this year in the budget.
Thanks.
Any other questions from anybody? Okay, seeing none. The recommendation is that we receive the report regarding advertising and then amendments to Schedule C of the Fees and Charges Bylaw 19/2020 to provide for advertising charges as referenced in the report dated May 4th, 2020 be approved. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, that looks like it's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Treasurer Angela.
All right, at the last meeting, it was kind of left a bit vague. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with addressing the report that I've provided. And I've had some questions as well. So I'm going to address those next so that we can have them recorded in the minutes. It was sort of left as we would get an answer for the CIBC Wealth Management credit rating backing for the guaranteed investment. And it, as I had emailed all of you, they are backed by CIBC Bank, and that's how they're able to have their lending and credit rating and offer what they offer. I did start looking into investing opportunities October, November. I was meeting with a bunch of different, well, they all have different titles, but I did meet with RBC, has a wealth management group, CIBC, TD. I did meet with the Private Investment Corporation, so Edward Jones. I know a bunch of municipalities do use that as well. And CIBC seemed to have the best products out there. They had the best CDIC insurance offering. And we do actually work with CIBC. They were the successful RFP for the banking RFP. So that's the reason we get good interest on our checking account as well. So I did complete the cash flow analysis in December and determined 5 to 6 million would be appropriate to invest. And just a note, after that 5 to 6 million invested, we actually have enough for our operations to operate for a full year with 0 revenue streams. So that's after the investment that we still have that ability. Just so that, you know, I'm not investing money that we could potentially need or anything like that. So that cash flow and that outcome was back in December, and it remains the same as well. We are actually up a little bit in the net position. So I will move on to the questions. So question number 1, the specific name of the CIBC Wealth Management Fund. So West Perth would be investing in a variable rate GIC. So the only reason they're called principal protected notes is because a GIC is a defined term. So whether we pick, say, a 5-year term for these principal protected notes, we're not locked in. So we can cash out early. The only adjustment is for time value of money, which is any investment tool as well. So for the copy of a prospectus for each fund, there are no funds and there are no prospectus. The prospectus would be available if this was, say, a mutual fund investment. However, these are really structured like a GIC. So there is no prospectus for this. What we would get in return is actually a registration of the deposit note, which would determine our principal value of investment and whatever terms we agree to. For example, 2 weeks ago, we could have had, you know, our principal of $5 million invested in a 5-year principal protected note with 100% participation capped at 20% return. So that means that it would be 5 years. We'd get 100% of any market participation. So any market upswing, they call it participation. And it would be capped at a maximum of 20% return. So they're actually capping these right now because there is the potential for significant income as the market recovers. So normally they're not a capped investment, but they have put a cap, so that 20%. One specific example for that, if we did reach that 20% as the market increases, say within 6 months, we can actually cash out and discount it back for time value of money. We could have gotten an 8% return, which would actually be about 400,000 within, you know, 2 to 6 months, whenever the market recovered to a 20% return, which would cap us out at 400,000. So that's just an example. The name of the fund managers. So we don't actually have a fund manager. It's a relationship management team is what CIBC calls it. We already have this team in place because they were the successful bidder in the banking RFP. This is just the investment side of the relationship team that we've reached out to. My liaison is Michael Aries. His formal title within CIBC is Vice President and Investment Counselor for the CIBC Wealth Management branch. He was able to provide me with a couple of references. He has to get permission in order to publish these because they are municipalities, but he does deal with the municipal sector, so he's familiar with the Municipal Act. So Haldimand County has given him permission to use them, and Perth County as well. We can touch base and ask for additional references if need be. And the underlying investments that West Perth municipal funds would be placed into. The only investment that would actually have West Perth's name on it is actually this principal protected note, or a GIC with a variable rate that's backed by the credit rating of CIBC Bank. The return, the participation that we're referring to, so the upswing of the market, is what we would select some blue chip stocks to base this on. So that's not necessarily where our money would be invested, but that's what our return would be tied to. So, for example, one of the safest things right now are actually the Canadian chartered banks. So we might be tied to those blue chip stock performance, but not necessarily, like, our fund is actually just this GIC with a variable rate. The worst case scenario, essentially, if the market's completely crashed and burned the day that I pulled this money out, which we would only do in the event that all of our other money was somehow gone. The worst that would happen was we would get our $5 million or $6 million back, whatever we initially invested. So that is worst case scenario. If anybody has any questions, that address the 4 questions that I received today.
Okay, thanks, Angela. Any comments, questions? Jeff, do you want to add anything? I know you commented about the county. The CAOs obviously talk amongst themselves, but I understand the county has made use of this particular service. Or, well, yeah, okay, Angela. Yeah, you want to update us about Perth County?
Sure. So Corey was dealing with the investment, so they've invested $7 million. I don't know the details of their individual investments, but they have put $7 million in the principal protected notes.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Dean, just it's better now. I was going to say, just tip your laptop, if that's what it is, or your computer, just down a wee bit, because all I can see is basically your forehead there at the start. So yeah, go ahead, Dean. That's better.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, thanks, Angela, for that information. It's not every day we get asked about investing $6 million. So having that additional information helps clarify the position we're taking and gives greater understanding to how we're moving forward. So GICs are typically a safe investment, historically speaking. So that seems reasonable to me, the way you've explained it here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. No problem.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much, Angela. Very good, very good. So there is no action taken. This was just a follow-up from the previous meeting and an explanation of some of the questions that were asked. So we have dealt with that, so we'll move on. The next item then is the clerk's report. So Carla, you have an update on the electronic participation. It's getting cold out there in the woods, isn't it?
It is. It is. Actually, yeah, thanks to Perth County Economic Development and some of my staff in the clerk department made some of these backgrounds, just showing off how beautiful West Perth really is. So it's good to see that we're taking the opportunity to show it off. This report here is regarding Bill 189 and the flexibility that's provided under the Planning Act. So as I mentioned in my report, Bill 187 spoke to just Municipal Act meetings. So that was like council meetings, BIA meetings, and Councillor Bell will speak to that later on in the agenda, as you know. But this one here is regarding the Planning Act. So this will permit this act amendment has done 2 major things. One, it temporarily suspends specific timelines regarding to land use planning. So there are timelines within the Planning Act that require once the application's deemed complete, when you have to have a meeting, and as well when council needs to make a decision on a planning application, or it can be appealed. So that those timelines are now frozen until the declaration of an emergency is terminated. Secondly, what it requires is, provides is that council can proceed with public meetings under the Planning Act. So you think of things such as the zoning bylaw, a zoning bylaw amendment, or a minor variance under the Committee of Adjustment. So that will allow council to make that decision that these meetings will be held electronically, similar to what you see tonight. It's anticipated that we, hopefully this won't be going on much longer. But as noted in my report, it is important that we, ensure the continuity of business and development, but it's also, important for council to see that there will be possible difficulties in terms of the public being able to participate. I'm just trying to be cognizant of that. The planner and myself have discussed at great length different options that would be available. And we are just kind of recommending that the certain contentious files be held off. Perhaps we're back to regular meetings in a month. But, those meetings that may be non-contentious and kind of easily being able to be held electronically, that we move forward those applications. Currently, we don't have any zoning bylaw amendments at the time that are ready to proceed with a public meeting. But we do have 2 applications that have been recently received for our Committee of Adjustment. So the recommendation is such that we could proceed with these meetings if we were still in this position. Dealing with non-contentious files versus contentious. And even if it were a contentious file and we were to hold a public meeting and council felt that the method that we were using, they may need further public consultation, a further public meeting that would be held, when we are able to meet in person. They're not obligated to make a decision as they were under the Planning Act under normal circumstances. The flexibility has provided that you could delay that decision. And just to try to take advantage of the situation, we haven't heard anything else in terms of amendments to the Drainage Act that would allow a quarter revision or a consideration of a report. So my recommendation is that council give me the pre-authorization that should that legislation come into effect, I would be able to move forward with giving notice and continue on with those meetings. And again, we would have them in the same format. If I were to have a quarter revision where I had an appeal, it would probably be wise for staff to at that time put this on hold until we'd be able to meet in public, in person, but that would be the decision of council in the quarter revision. So if you have any further questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Mike?
So Carla, once it's in place for the Committee of Adjustment meetings and that, do you set them up then, or is it up to Adam, or how do we schedule that going forward?
So as the Secretary Treasurer for that committee, I would do it the exact same way. The template would look the same as our current Committee of Adjustment. As the rest of council might note, the Committee of Adjustment meets outside of council. So the Committee of Adjustment are a quasi-judicial committee in which when members are there, they're not council members, they are committee members. So you'd be the 5 Committee of Adjustment members and myself, and then the public that would be invited that would be under, I think it's 60 meters of the subject property. So we would be doing it the same as tonight, only I would include those members that wish to comment. They would be also participants as you are tonight. And just for clarification purposes, my intention would not be to, generally the Committee of Adjustment, just for ease, we meet the same night as council, so that council members are already in the same building, and then we move on, they meet at 6, and then at 7 o'clock is regular council. It would be my intention to move these applications as quickly as possible. So if we were prepared, there's I believe a 10-day notice period. So we would send that notice out that we'd be able to meet earlier than the next council if possible. In saying that, as noted in my report, we have to be really aware that people are impacted very differently with COVID, and we can't assume that they're getting their mail in the same way, and we can't assume that they are able to participate electronically. So Staff are working really diligently to make sure that we're balancing that, moving business forward, and also ensuring that the public do have that same opportunity to participate.
Okay, so just to clarify then, Carla, if for committee of adjustment, if there was a person that had some issues within the circulation area, they could join via Zoom if they wish to. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so all the details aren't, I don't have in front of me, but what it would look like is the regular notice that the subject of 60 meters of that subject property. Within that notice would say, if you intend on participating, please contact the clerk at, and then they would be giving a confidential ID password to ensure security, the same as you would receive, as well as our phone number. So if they didn't feel comfortable being on video, we can do audio. We have always, same with the public meeting, always received written correspondence. You think back to some planning applications that the individual's not in the actual council chambers, but we have received that written correspondence, but they would be participating the same way you are today.
Good. Murray, you had a question?
Yes, and I think it's pretty much been answered by what you and Carla have both said. There was a person had contacted a few of us on council, I believe, about trying to get a minor variance, or there was something about the committee anyway. And I said I would look into it or find something out. And I think you guys have answered the questions, that it's due process and everything will be done very similar to what it was before.
Yeah, and I'll note that during this time, staff have continued to accept applications, reviewed applications, and circulated applications to all regulatory agencies. So generally you'd see before the meeting, we would send it to those regulatory agencies. So conservation authorities, MPAC. We don't want to get caught up in that bottleneck of when everybody is moving forward and looking to do the same. So we've been proactive in terms of receiving those comments ahead of time. So, but any applicant that has submitted an application, we have kind of clarified the current process. After April 15th, it looked like we just need council's authority to move forward and that we'd be participating electronically. So as long as council provides that authority, keeping in mind that the reason why council are provided that option is if you don't feel that the public meetings can be held properly and transparent and open to all, it's a consideration, it's absolutely a consideration for council. More councils are moving forward by the end of the month to start holding such meetings. Again, we're kind of in a unfortunate situation where we don't have a lot of meetings that are scheduled in the near future. Again, you still have to follow the Planning Act in the 20-day notice period. So we're still, everything's kind of, we don't know where we're going to be in a couple of weeks. And so right now we're just looking for that authority that once we are ready, then we'll be able to move forward with the notice period.
Okay, thanks, Carla. You mentioned about committee of adjustment, and you kind of talked about court of revision. Any updates on police services boards?
No, police service boards are in the same boat as committee of the court of revision, where the legislation hasn't been amended. The province has been very proactive and very responsive to municipalities and professional associations, noting how important these meetings are to move ahead. But we just haven't seen that in the same way as police services or the Drainage Act. In terms of police services, the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan that was originally needed to be completed by January 1, 2021. It was amended under Bill 189 as well. And so now that deadline's been removed. We are meeting this week to talk about still going forward, as it is important, but the meetings themselves haven't been up for discussion at this time.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody with regards to Carla's report? Okay, I have a recommendation here that West Perth received the report update, electronic participation, and that staff be directed to set up electronic public meetings for the purpose of the Planning Act, and that staff be directed to schedule meetings under the Drainage Act in the event that legislation is amended to permit electronic meetings. So mover and seconder for that motion, Councillor Rose and Councillor, I'm looking here, Councillor Bell. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Correspondence request for electronic meetings by the BIA Board of Directors. Sherry, do you wish to speak to that?
I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We do have a few sort of things to tidy up that we should finish. Most of our board of directors is able to meet electronically or at least by telephone. So, but just in this time, we're seeing a lot of changes on the main street, and one of the number one priorities of the BIA is to try to support them, and we need to meet to be able to discuss some of our plans, as well as we have some day-to-day housekeeping that we have to work on too.
Okay, all right. Carla or Jeff, anything further to add to that correspondence? Carla?
Yeah, I can just add that I absolutely am ready to work with the BIA and with Trish McNaughton personally. I have no problem sitting in on the meeting and in the background, in terms of it would be a lot of work, but to train her and get all of everything set up. But I think that we need to be mindful that this committee itself represents a community that is greatly impacted right now. And I think that in order for them to look at what their recovery is going to look like, I think this meeting would be important. However, still saying with the Municipal Act, it needs to be open to the public. And this is the only way that we can ensure that it's open to the public. And as such, it'd be held through a Zoom meeting, and we could stream it live to even their Facebook account directly.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say, was the live stream part of it, so that anyone who could watch wanted to.
Okay, anybody else? Any comments on that? All right, moving on then. We're down to council reports, and the first one is Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, the Board of Directors meetings February the 20th, and another meeting on the 28th. So Anna Marie?
Yes, if you have any questions. Mike had a question last week about the budget and about the transfer levy, the transfer payment that was reduced by the province. That is what this transfer levy recovery dollars is all about. It's been divvied up amongst all the municipalities that benefit to the certain percentage, and it's been assigned that way, just so you know. And from the other two meetings, or from the other meetings, we had a meeting last week by Zoom, and was run a little bit differently than this, but it worked well as well. Was a little bit shorter than usual, so that's okay.
Any questions? Mike?
Just a comment about that transfer levy, like the municipalities, we could do that too, or other conservation authorities, but I don't think we want it to look like the Union Gas bill in the end, so I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the way that they show that, but like the bottom line, it should be, it is what it is. Just a comment.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Okay, if there's no further questions for Anna Marie, next item is the executive committee meeting report, and it was on April the 23rd. And Nicholas, you have a verbal report, I guess, for that one.
Yes, thank you, Walter. Executive had the chance to meet on April 23rd, and the main purpose for that meeting was to give us an idea, an update on the human resources staffing side with the prospect of us living as a result of COVID-19. So what we heard at that executive meeting was that staff had adapted very well because of this culture that we have of caring, culture of stewards of the taxpayer. I think our organization is benefiting from that good work ethic and that good relationship that we have with staff. So all departments have taken measures to follow the COVID-19 protocols where possible. Employees are working from home, completing their regular job assignments, plus the additional functions relating to COVID-19. But unfortunately, we have had to lay off some part-time staff. That includes the crossing guards in the library, and ended a contract early in recreation. Also noted are 2 West Perth Fire Department members that are unavailable for service due to the nature of their full-time employment right now. Going forward, we're going to, staff will review the workload of every department regularly to ensure that we have the adequate staffing levels, and also review the strategic work plan to assess if there's any projects on the list and determine if any of these projects need to be deferred or moved up. So if you have any specific identifiable individual questions, that kind of stuff, that we do have a closed session, I understand, coming up on May 19th that'll address some of the rest of the executive committee minutes. In the meantime, if you have any human resources questions, so you can ask CAO Brick or myself. But that closed session coming up on the 19th, I'll deliver the rest of the executive meeting minutes at. Any other questions?
Questions for Nicholas? Oh, sorry, Doug?
I was in that meeting, and the Pandora's box got opened that all we need at the landfill is a debit card machine. I expected that to come up here tonight so we can get our landfill out. I watched Saturday how many people went by with truckloads of garbage, and I'm not guessing where it is because they weren't all full sitting around town. We had 2 great days, from what I understand, at the arena. But if all that's holding us back as municipality for our landfill is a debit card machine, we went through it. That'll be 10 days ago at that meeting. And then I expected Jeff or Richard or Mike to figure something out about, we can do it. Stratford's open, North Perth's open, Perth South's open. We say we can't take cash, but I mean, it's a short, easy fix to get a debit card machine there. And that's the question I get asked every day. So if somebody could respond.
I'll go first, Angela, and then, so my apologies, Councillor or Deputy Mayor, I didn't recognize that you wanted that brought to this council meeting. We were talking about HR issues, so, but if this council would like to have that investigated, I think this is a good time for council to provide direction for staff for a report back. That would be very helpful.
Doug, does that answer your question?
Oh, Mike's got his hand up, Dean. Angela, no. I want to go out and get a debit card machine and get the dump open. I don't need a report. I need to do it in a pandemic. We need to get at it. I thought it would be done 9 days ago when we talked about it Thursday. I thought on the Friday, they would just go out and purchase one through the treasurer, Angela. So she'll want to speak. I know why we didn't get one in the past. I want to know why we don't have one now.
Angela?
In order to make it effective, we're going to have an adequate internet connection. I think that might be one thing that's holding us back. And the monthly cost is about $57, and then the initial setup. So that would be what we'd be looking at in terms of cost. But I believe the big issue is going to be internet that we'd have to investigate, but we can look into something like that.
Councillor Tam?
I agree 100% with Doug. I've had so many comments that can't we just open the dump? Like it seems like instead of in baseball where you're throwing at the cutoff man, you get the ball and throw it over the fence. Like we're taking it to the arena and then taking it back to the dump. And I have an office in town, half a block from there, and the internet is fine. So I don't think we need a report. I think we just need to do it.
Okay, somebody else, Counselor, I don't know who's talking here. Counselor Trinkowski.
Please proceed forthwith as per Councillor Tam and Deputy Mayor Wright. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Jeff, sorry.
I just want to mention one additional thing to keep in consideration is the database that we use for collecting information and the way that speaks to our finance software back at the office. So there are more considerations than just a good internet connection and the cost of the transactions. There's the training of staff and how the data is collected and secured. So I would like to have an opportunity to do some research on that if you want it to be looked into, and we will report back to council.
Sorry, Councillor Rose.
Question for Jeff. Do you have any timeline, how long you think that should take?
I can follow up with that right away with the operations manager and the environmental services coordinator, and we can ask them that council has asked us to look into it.
Okay, other questions? I'm looking here. Okay, Doug, any further comments? You got the question answered or not?
Well, I know there's internet there at the dump because I asked Richard Wright. It's already there. I just don't know how we can proceed so slowly. Karen's not here anymore. We could raise our dump fee a penny, recoup our $57. It's one of these things that should have been done before. We're a wireless society. We're not a cash. Our guys at the dump have to, when the landfill, when it's over, they have to take the deposit to the CIBC. I meet them there every Saturday. That's a lot of responsibility for two guys like that. Same as our girls going singly from the town hall. But if it was debit card only, never take a penny of cash at the landfill. But it's going to take, we're talking 2 weeks, and then we're talking 2 more weeks to get it. So our landfill won't be open for a month. We're going to have a council meeting in council probably in 2 weeks because we know that they're going to loosen things up. Jeff's meeting on Wednesday about it. It just, to me, it's too long for people to throw their garbage out. And I don't think we're doing any more.
Jeff?
If you don't mind just muting yours, Walter. I'll just mention that I want to remind you all that we have a system set up. The landfill's not closed. It's open for commercial operators, and it's open for anyone that has an account that wants to email and arrange a drop off. And we certainly can take large loads and any special needs that anyone needs to drop off. So if there's a situation where they're moving or they've done a major cleanup, we want to accommodate those. We're either setting up an account for them or collecting in another way, but we are making arrangements to deal with people that have those needs. And then anyone that's outside of those needs has curbside pickup available using the regular curbside pickup schedule. So I just want to clarify that the landfill's not closed. The service of being able to drop off a single bag of garbage at the landfill isn't available, and we don't intend to make that available because we've got curbside pickup as the alternative. Now, I absolutely agree that in the long run, moving to a digital payment system, and if you'd like us to explore if that could be done quickly, we will look into that, and we are going to be obviously looking at bringing the landfill back online, and it would be nice to be able to do it with a non-cash system. That's another measure of protection we could put in place for our staff. So we'll look into that. But in the meantime, if anyone requires a landfill drop-off, it's an email or phone call away.
Mike? You're muted, Mike.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
There's a sign on the gate, Jeff, spray painted on a piece of plywood that says closed to the public. So people pull up, they leave, they throw it in the ditch, and they're done. So that shouldn't be there.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think sorry, Councillor Marshall.
This actually isn't directly related to landfill, but it is related to the waste. The garbage bins on the trail, I see the one has been removed. Nothing been replaced. The traffic on the trails down along the river are greatly increased. The number of pets. I saw today somebody's actually set up their own private thing for the poop bags. I'm just wondering if there's a reason why the municipality took that waste bin out of off the trail, and if there's any plans to put more back up there.
I think I don't know whether Jeff wants to talk to that or not, but I think we can leave it with Jeff to talk to Mike and get that can back again. I know there was one there that was full and made him aware of it. I wasn't aware that they took it away. I thought it would be emptied and then replaced. So you have anything further, Jeff? You just talk to Mike and we'll look after that. So, okay. Councillor Matheson. You're muted.
Yep. I'm just to follow up with Councillor Marshall's comment. Are all the garbage cans not back out anywhere? Because they're not in any of the parks. Because I know the one across the street from me is used frequently, and the garbage can's not there. So I didn't know if that was scheduled to be back. Like, I know they take them away at the winter time. They're back out when they come back out.
I'll follow up with Mike.
Yeah, we'll leave it with Jeff and he'll have to follow up with Mike. I don't know what the time frame is for those garbage containers to go into the parks. I know our parks are open. Carla's got her hand up, so I'll ask her in a minute, but I know our parks are open, but they're for travel through or walking through. They're not for stopping and sitting on benches and visiting and one thing and another. So Carla, I'll let you answer.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth. That was exactly what I was going to state. I'm not aware of the garbage overflow. However, I did want to note that currently the parks are not closed, but they are not permitted for use or for walkthrough only. And as such, it's surprising to see how much waste is going into municipal waste bins if they're not to be used.
Okay, so I think we leave it with between Jeff and Carla, and we'll see what's going on with the operation people and try and get a handle on that. Anything else? Okay. Anything else, Nicholas? I think you covered pretty well everything there. All right. Okay, moving on then. The BIA minutes, Councillor Bell.
I think they're pretty self-explanatory. Few things on those to tidy up at our next meeting, unless someone has a question.
Any questions for Sherry? Councillor Trinkowski?
Yeah, I had a look at the email from Mr. Fost about the intersection
Yes.
He's asking about changing the cycle time of the advanced green light for eastbound traffic turning left to head north. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that would take a fair bit of reworking of the traffic controller, the box that's attached on the utility pole, and it's called actuated signal timing. So there would be you'd have to do a rework of the controller, as well as install loops in the ground, and possibly have to reconfigure or upgrade the traffic lights themselves, to the wiring to handle that. It's not a quick fix, is what I'm trying to say.
And I'm sure that will probably come back to us in our report. So we had invited Mr. Fost actually to come to our meeting and address this concern, so that Jeff could make the proper notes and it could go directly to where it needed to go, and then Jeff's to bring us back a report at the next meeting. And I'm sure that information will probably come back.
Dean?
Yeah, well, that would have to go through our works department, and because it's connecting link, MTO would have to be involved, because it's on a provincial highway, and you'd have to reconfigure your signal timing, the programming with the other traffic lights as well.
Right. Yeah, and he was very aware that it wasn't just a West Perth decision. So we just wanted to make sure that he was heard and he was able to come and have a good conversation about his concerns.
And we have tweaked that intersection before when construction was on in Main Street. It was tweaked a few times just to allow proper traffic flow. So, I think we take it through the powers that be, and eventually Mike will comment on it, and we'll see what can be done. But the other comment, and I believe it was in the same letter, was signage pointing to the municipal parking, and I think also the car wash is there. And that was a good point. Like, we have no signs downtown indicating that there is free municipal parking, just one block off of Main Street. So I think that's something that should certainly be looked at and addressed in the very near future. All right. If there's no further questions for Sherry for BIA, I have a motion here, a recommendation, and it's that West Perth accepts the reports from staff and councillors as presented, and further that all committee minutes and correspondence not specifically dealt with by resolution be received and filed. We have a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Harold. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? I think let's just do that one again. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Bylaws. I have nothing written down here for bylaws. Upcoming events, May 18th is the what is known as, I guess, the 24th of May weekend, and the municipal office and landfill will be closed, which is probably no different than every other day this week and last week and for the last month. Our next regular meeting, if you call these regular, will be the 19th of May, and then again on June the 1st. Does anybody have a notice of motion? Seeing none. Any other business that anybody wants to bring up? Dean?
Just that I wanted to make an inquiry or query to follow up on the news we received lately about the closing of the Continental plant. If there's any more news that can be shared at this time or forthcoming at an upcoming meeting.
We did have reach out to the company. There was an email that went from me, from this office to their office, and an explanation that we were, I guess, disappointed with the news. However, a fact of life is that, you know, they just were not getting the sales that they needed. The Perth County Economic Development through Meredith Forget is also reaching out and working with them if there's any assistance that they can do. Other than that, that's about where we're at, I think, Dean, on that. And I'm glad you brought that up because I was just going to mention that next. So we were on the same page there. I don't know if anybody else has any questions or anything else they want to add at this time, but basically they're there until spring of next year, and then the research and development will be there till the end of 2021.
A person on our economic development committee, Selena Quast, she's actually emailed me when this started going around. They've been working with them for, she's with Conestoga College. So they, as a Mitchell person, they've been working with them for about a month. She seemed to know ahead of the 2 weeks ago we did it. So we do have somebody in the community actually that's helping to look out for some of the people.
Right, right. No, the correspondence that I received from the company, they seemed very sincere and that they were concerned about the employees, that they were going to look after them. So further, other than that, there's not much I can add at this time. Okay. Any other business then, other than that? There is no closed session tonight. The confirmatory bylaw would be the next thing, and that's bylaw number 40, 2020, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Corporation Municipality of West Perth be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Mover and seconder for that bylaw and the 3 readings would be in order. Councillor Marshall and Councillor Rose. Sorry, didn't see that. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And finally, the last one of the night, and we've done very well tonight. Motion to adjourn, and that Municipality of West Perth adjourn the council meeting at 8:01, and moved by Councillor Tam and seconded by Councillor, taking my pick, Councillor Rose again. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. So very good, people. I think we achieved what we wanted to achieve tonight, and yeah, it went fairly well. So thank you very much, and we'll Zoom again in a few weeks.